If you can't hear me in the back of the room, will you please raise your hand? If somebody raises their hand, then I know I'm loud enough.
Yeah. They heard you. Tell them move up to the front.
I tell everybody that if you want to hear me, you probably need to move to the front.
Not so anonymous with the. No, I can't do it. That's right. Not so anonymous with EJ Eureka.
We're here today with my friend Terry. First of all, thank you for doing this, Terry.
You're welcome.
Thank you for letting us in your house. And so, man, I know Terry. I met Terry. I couldn't tell you when I met Terry, but I would see Terry around at events. Everywhere I would go in recovery, I would see Terry there, right? But then there was this period of time during the pandemic where everything shut down. And I would go to this meeting, and nobody would show up, right? And then all of a sudden, Terry started showing up, and mind you, he lives an hour and a half away. And then he decided to show up every week, right, for the better part of a year. And me and Terry became friends, right? And through that time, this guy helped me out. I might have quit doing what I was doing if it wasn't for this man, right? So I just have the utmost gratitude for you and what you did for me through that period of time. And since then, we've become pretty good friends, I'd say. So when it comes to having you on here, I'm really excited to have you on here because not only are you that type of person where you show up for other people, you have an amazing message of recovery, right? Like what you've been through, what you've done, and what you're doing are inspiring not only to me, but I'm sure a lot of people around you. So that's who Terry is to me, right? And so I always like to start off and I ask, what's your clean date?
March the 23rd, 2003.
So coming up on 20 years here pretty soon.
Pretty soon.
And so what does that clean date mean to you, Terry?
It means a whole lot. It means I have a life today. And I'm grateful for that life that I have. I would have never got that life if I hadn't found a 12-step program to change me and work on me. And I'm so grateful for that.
Right.
And that's why I show up. I do what I do so I don't lose this gratitude I have for the life I have today.
Right. And a lot of us, you know, and people looking at us may think, oh, these people don't look like addicts, right? These people aren't drug addicts, right? So, I mean, like, would you even say with, like, that amount of time clean, does the thought of using ever even come across your mind anymore?
Oh, yeah, it sure does. It comes across my mind a lot. You know, my mind sees something on the television or something new, or I hear something new. My mind says, you ain't tried that. We need to take a look at that. But I got another side of me called recovery, says you know exactly where it'll take you, so you probably don't need to be doing that.
Right. Yeah. And so talking about where it takes you, like, I always like to, you know, where we hang out, a lot of times we don't talk about the mess too much, right? But I like for this, you know, for people that are unengaged, I always like to go back, you know, especially even to early life to qualify, right? Like, so what did early life look like for you, Terry? What did it look like growing up for you?
Well, when I was growing up, I had a mother and a father that was very caring and loving and all that stuff. But I was kind of, you know, siblings. I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and I happened to be the rebel of all of them, and I'd do all this crazy things. But I grew up in a world of coal mining country. If anybody ever watched Coal Miner's Daughter, I grew up out of a town kind of like that, and then I didn't fit well in with the other kids, so I hung out, and it was back during the segregation time, and the black stayed here, the white stayed there, and it's crazy, So I spent all my time in the black neighborhood because I felt more comfortable over there, and the bootlegger was there, and then that's where I started my disease. Started off at the age of about 13 or 14 years old with moonshine liquor, And it was cheap, and all this stuff, and so I'd done all that, and then I'd get in trouble, and Daddy'd ground me for life, and I kind of like done the yard thing like you do in a prison, When I knew I was getting grounded for life, I'd go get 4 quarts, put it on each corner of the property, and then I'd walk the line until they turned me loose again, It's the disease, man, Couldn't live without it, I had to have it. And I knew it was destroying me, but I done it anyway because I couldn't stop.
Right.
And that's about where I was in my younger years. And then after that, I decided, I graduated high school and all that stuff, and I decided to join the service. And I went into the Marine Corps, took 4 years in the Marine Corps to get away from the lifestyle because I didn't want to be a coal miner. That was not in my agenda. And I done 4 years in the Marines and went to Vietnam, done all that stuff. And I got out with a clean record and an honorable discharge, but I kept getting in trouble, though, because the drugs is there, and I went to Vietnam, then I found all kind of different drugs, all of that stuff, and I got experimenting with everything.
Yeah.
And then when I come home, from there, I got with a girl that I went to high school with. She got pregnant, we got married, and all kind of crazy stuff.
So
But the
would
marriage didn't last either.
So would you say this disease was present ever before you even knew what it was, huh?
Oh, yeah, I didn't know what the disease was. I didn't even understand what the disease was, when I was small, I had an uncle. His name was Uncle Bo, and he was a hobo back in the days that jumped trains.
Uh-huh.
And he'd jump on these trains and go to all these different places like New York, Chicago, come back and tell these amazing stories. And I grew up, I didn't grow up wanting to be a doctor or a lawyer or nothing. I wanted to be a hobo traveling the world. And I would share that with the family too, because he had these amazing stories. He didn't tell me about the bad side of it.
Right.
It was always the good glory of how pretty it was, And he died from the disease too.
Wow. So as a young child, your aspirations were to be a hobo.
Yeah.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah. And I pretty well made it.
And then, so I got to imagine, you grow up a certain way, and then you go to the military, and you learn a whole new set of tools. You come back with new drugs that you like. So, what does it look like for you? How old were you when you got out of the military, and then what does that look like, getting out of Vietnam and then coming back to the States?
Well, when I come back from Vietnam, I come back to the States. I was 20 years old when I got back from the States. I went in at the age of 18, and I was in Vietnam at 19, so, because in the Vietnam area, it was a whole bunch of kids trying to be grown-ups in the war, because it was really a bunch of 19, 20-year-old kids trying to fight a war, don't know nothing, but doing the best we could with what we had. The way we was trained well and everything fine. So when I come back to the States, I was 20 years old. I pulled up in what did I come into? I come into San Diego, right? I go to downtown to go to the bar because I'm a military man. I fought for this country. I walked in the bar and I had to be 21 to be able to get a drink. This ain't gonna work. And I copped the resentment against people, But it wasn't the people because they got a law they required to go by whether I fought a war or not. I figure if I'm big enough fighting war, I'm big enough to drink in this country, So I go to and I use the military to get 2 ID cards. One I'm 21 and the one I'm got the legal ID for the inspections, So I could do what I wanted to do, manipulate the system to get where I want to go.
Right. Something we become pretty good at in our disease.
Yes, it is.
And so now and at this point, I got to imagine the disease is progressing, right? From the age of 13 to 20, you learned a whole lot of things. And so where does it start taking you in your early years? I know, you got clean, at an older age. And so you had a lot of experience out there using. What does that look like from the age of 20 till the time you got clean? I know there's a lot to unpack there, but I mean.
Well, after I come back, like I said, I met this girl. She got pregnant. We got married, and all this stuff. And during that time, I was living in Alabama and doing all I done down in that area, and I could keep a job. Job was easy to get. You get a job, get a party, you get a job, back in them days. And so she was a nurse and all this stuff. But I couldn't stay home. My life was all about the party, have a good time. And she was a normie. And she wasn't into the party scene, and so it just got bad, and I come home one time and she was gone. I woke up and I was in my truck and I was living in the truck and it was raining and I had lived in a trailer and I woke up and I had a blanket on me, a pillow under my head and she wasn't there. I went into the trailer and everything was gone except for my clothes. She moved out and said bye-bye
Right.
and got a divorce from me, and then I can't blame her for that, because I was in my disease. But then I said, but she wanted child support, so I done that, I paid the child support, but my disease wouldn't let me work. And then I got behind on the child support thing, and when that happened, she called me up and told me, said, "You're going to pay me my money or I'm going to put you in jail." I said, "Ooh, well, this ain't cool." So I joined the National Guard, because I could go back into the National Guard, and just be fit right in, and they give me a check every month, and I'd give that check to her, right, and all that stuff. And I started being a good boy and all that stuff and getting close to her so I could see my kid and all this stuff, and I asked her to remarry me. After, like sugar melts in your mouth,
Yeah.
deal, and then she said, okay. So when I walked out of the courthouse, I said, now collect your money. I squashed that debt the day we got married. And she got mad and she moved to Wisconsin and took the baby and left me. I went insane when she took my kid, man.
Yeah.
But I didn't stop in the disease, though. I just kept doing what I was doing and hunting my baby, And when I found my baby, I was okay with where the baby's at and what's going on, I didn't go get him or nothing. I just kept playing in the disease. The disease had me.
Yeah.
It owned me.
Well, a lot of people don't understand when you're caught up in that disease, finding the next one is more important than anything else.
And that's true. And then I met another lady, got with her, the same thing. I went through the same scenario as I did with that one. She got pregnant, I got married. She got tired of me, but this time she left me and moved to Wisconsin. So everybody was going north, and I'm not cool with north,
Yeah.
And so, but she left me with the baby. And then she called me up and told me she had her lawyer call me and said I'd meet him in the courthouse and bring the baby to his office in his office. And I told her I ain't doing that. Because I know if I take the baby and I get in that office, they might take the baby away from me. And I wasn't fixing to give up another kid. Not like that. And so I left the baby home and I showed up. She didn't show. And then I said, well, what's we going to do? He said, where's the baby? I said, the baby ain't coming. I'm going to tell you that right out the gate. Until the judge says I got to give her that baby, I'm keeping that baby. But I'm still running into disease, But I ain't taking care of this kid. I'm letting everybody else do it for me. And, like the leech, I'm still leeching off of other people to help me do what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And then he finally told me, he said, well, here's the deal. I said, what's the deal? Because when I showed up second time, she didn't show up. She said, well, I'll be your lawyer and you can get the divorce. I said, I ain't paying you. I didn't hire you. I done won the case. And then my disease had me so bad that I was just leaving this kid anywhere and everywhere, with people in the disease just like me, and go party, and then I come back and get the kid and go home. And then she called me and I talked to her and I told her, I said, look, I tried to get somebody to take in my family to take my kid and raise my kid, but nobody wanted to do that. So she called me and I took him to Wisconsin and dropped him off.
Right.
To her, and then I got up there. She was living in a motel, so I got a job. I went to work, done what I done, got him in a cottage house and up there, and then everything went north because I'm still in the disease, and all this stuff, and I'm partying and working. And then I found out my disease says, let's go. And I said, okay. So I jumped on the bus, and when I left, my kid was standing in front of the bus, hollering, Daddy, please don't leave. And my disease is so powerful that I gave him a hug and said, I love you, and I drove away.
Wow.
On that bus. And I ain't seen that kid since that day.
So would you say, I know the disease had a hold of you before then, but things like this, were those the things that kept you using?
Yeah, and I beat me up over a lot of that stuff, later on down the road, because I'd be laying there and I said, I could have had a life, I didn't have a life, I ain't worth nothing, I'm a worthless piece of nothing, and I'm not really a worthless piece of nothing, but see, what happens is I'm a good person living in a bad area, in my head.
Right.
Because everything's in my distance into my head, and it makes me think some ungodly sick stuff, about me, and it's not true. It's just I have something that's got a hold of me that I can't seem to shake. It's always there, always. And it's always telling me, I need to feed you, I need to feed you, you know. And I'm feeding this disease, and I ain't feeding my spiritual side of me. You know, it's what I know today, but then I didn't know that. I thought I was destined to die on the streets in Merced, California. You know, because I ended up on the streets of Merced. I pushed a shopping cart for over 8 years, thinking I had a job. Because I was feeding the disease. I remember one time I was out there and it was midnight and I'm running in the streets, digging in garbage cans, doing what I do with these garbage cans. And the guy told me, he said, "You're making too much noise." I said, "Well, I'm doing my job. I'm working." he said, he said, he said, "Get a real job." I said, "You got one for me?" He kept doing what I do. See, my disease could play that stuff off, right?
Right.
And I get what I got, and I had another buddy with me at that time. And I come out of the alley. He said, "Who in the world you talking to?" I said, "I was applying for a job." He said, "Oh my God, you know." But I run around with people just like me. You know,
Right.
I didn't run around with people that had jobs, none of that stuff. You know, I remember one time I got with this girl, and me and her run together for a while down there, and I convinced her she needed to get a job, and I could manage the money. And so I got her. We'd go down behind the employment office. I'd steal a newspaper, read the newspaper, circle the jobs that she qualified for, and say, "You check this out today. I'll go let you run, and I'll meet you over here at this time." Because she get paid at the end of every day, and she give me the money, and I manage the money, right?
Yeah.
That went on for a long time. You know, she finally told me, "So how come you don't never look for you a job?" I said, "I got one." Yeah. And I said, "You're going hungry, but we're living under a bridge."
Yeah.
The unmanageability, you know.
And ways and means.
And get more, you know. But I always managed to make sure she had, because she was an addict too, and had her fix, you know, early in the morning, and her cigarettes for the day, and she was good to go. But my stash was somewhere else. I didn't share mine with her, you know, because I got a long day of walking, you know. She just going to work, clean the house, the way I looked at it, you know. That's that disease, man.
Yeah.
Start talking. But then again, if you look on the flip side of that, there was a lot of people out there when I was in that disease helped me. And I didn't see it. I was grateful, you know, because I remember one time I was going down the alley and a car running up behind me, driving real slow, and I'm wondering, what the hell did he do? I know he ain't going to rob me because I ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and what's he doing, following me, you know? And then I stopped, and the girl got ahead of me a little bit, and he pulled up beside me. He says, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm doing fine, you know. I'm dying inside, but I ain't going to tell him that. I'm doing good. I'm just trying to make a few dollars. And he told me, he said, "I was riding along behind you, and I found two extra $20 in my pocket, and I thought this might help you." Who you know's got two extra $20? That's God working there.
Yeah.
Get me through another day. You know, and then I said, "Okay, thank you very much." And then I started to pull off. You know, he just sat there, and I went on pulling my cart, and he kept following me. You know, now he's going to want his money back. You know, and when he pulled up, he said, "Oh, I found another extra 20. You know, and wow. And that disease didn't say, "Let's go get a shower, let's do this, let's do that." He said, "We can quit catting now and go to the dope man's house.
Yeah.
Let's go get well." And then when I got up with the girl, she said, "What did you do? Did you know that guy back there?" I didn't know him, nobody. I said, "What happened?" He said, "I made $60 right here. I got a good job."
Well, and so you talk about being on the streets and being okay with that.
Yeah.
But there's a period of time before that where you're working jobs, you're doing this and that. Like, how do you go from being able to work and everything? Is that the progression of the disease?
That's the progression, you know, because I had jobs, you know. I could get a job, you know. I'm a house painter, and I could go to work, you know. I remember one time I was living, and at that time I had an apartment because one time during my life, you know, they had this thing with the government give us checks for people on under disease, you know, and all this stuff and all that. And so I was getting a check, so I rented me an apartment, right, and, you know, and doing all that, but the money was paying for the apartment and feeding my disease. And I decided one day I'd get me a job, you know, and these people come over to paint the apartment, and I was talking to them about painting, And then another guy walked up and said, I'm hunting a guy named Terry. I said, that's me. You know, and he said, you live here? I said, yes, I do. And he said, I'm hunting a painter, and do you really go to work for me? So I could get a job, you know, because I had a good name when I did work. I worked good, and I done it right, you know, and I done good work. I would show up, but after a while, I'd quit showing up.
Yeah.
The disease would say, well, you don't need to go today. You got an extra $20, $30. You can stay home today. And they get tired of that, and then they let me go, and then I could find another job. Jobs was easy for me to find because I had a good rapport when I did work. You know, I would show up, I would do the job, and I would do them right. You know, and then, but when I didn't, they say bye-bye, you know, and see you later. You know. I've even done that in Alabama, you know. I went to work for a pallet company one time over there building pallets, and I had a good rapport. I showed up faithfully. I done my job. I was on the number one line, made good pallets, you know, and all this stuff. And then one day I decided I just don't want to do this today. And then the next day I didn't want to do it. And my boss man told me, said, if you don't show up next Friday, you fired. So he paid us on the Thursday. I didn't show up on the Friday. Didn't make it in on Monday, and then I didn't have a job, right? And that's when I decided I'd go into a program and try to get my job back, right? And that worked for me, you know. 'Cause I went into this program, and I done what I done, you know. And then I was come back to live with my daddy, and then the phone rung, and there was a guy from the pallet company who said, hey, Terry, I hear you back, and you're doing better. You straightened up a little bit. Do you want your job back? I said, sure. And they hired me back, you know. So like I say, I had good rapport when I do work. But my disease wouldn't let me stay long at anywhere.
Yeah.
Because it needed to keep me moving and be nipped. And that's the way it worked for me. You know, I hate that disease, but I have to respect that disease too.
Yeah, and so it just became more comfortable just not to have to show up.
Just do what I'm going to do.
Right.
You know?
And so, like,
But then again, if you take a look at that, you know, after I done that, you know, I started lying, cheating, stealing, taking anything, wherever I could get my hands on it was mine. And once I it come my possession, if it ever got in my hand, it was mine. Even if I took your stuff and I got in my hand, it belonged to me. Yeah. And I'd tell you 9/10 of the law, it's mine. This is going with me, you know. My disease had me doing some insane stuff out there, you know, and I'm so grateful I don't have to do that no more.
Yeah.
You know, but I had to feed it, you know, to keep me. I wasn't even enjoying it no more. It was just, I was just trying to stay well, man. I was that sick in this disease, man.
Can you explain how it becomes normal for somebody to live on the streets? I think that's what a lot of people, you know, because we have a big topic right now is homelessness, right? Mm-hmm. And people don't understand why people just stay out on the streets. Like, what does that look like when you're out there and that just becomes the norm and you're just okay with it? Or are you okay with it?
Yeah, I don't understand that too. You know, when I first started out, I used it like it was in the military. We go camping a lot, you know, in the military. We stay out in the bush out for days and months at a time, you know. So it was just a camping experience in the beginning, you know. I could get comfortable going camping. But in the end, it was miserable because I couldn't get out. You know, I wasn't happy out there. I knew I wasn't happy out there and all that stuff. But I just didn't know how to get out no more, you know, because I couldn't take the time to go find no place, and I wouldn't take the time to go do nothing but except do what I do because I know this was making me the money I needed to get through the day. Yeah. You know, so I didn't ever really get comfortable out there, but I got okay with it, that this would be okay for me, you know. And then I don't know what happened, but one day I told myself, this ain't going to work for me no more. And when I was in my disease, I had a stepson that got me, pulled me out of the disease, put me on a bus, sent me back to Alabama, said, you need to get out of this town, you need to get away from this disease because you better than this, you know. So I went to Alabama. I caught the bus and went down. He said, don't never come back to California. And he blamed his mother for me. I said, you can't blame your mama for what I done. I made the choice to do what I done. Don't blame her. I didn't let him play the blame game with me. But then I went over there and I got a job. I started doing what I was doing over there. And then my disease, you know, you got a family in California, misses you. So I jumped back on the bus, come back here, and went right back to the streets, man. right back. But disease, like I say, owned me during that time. I couldn't get out of the trap because I was more comfortable not having responsibilities. I didn't want to be responsible for nothing but me,
Right.
so it kept me there. But everybody was really comfortable out there. So at the end of my run with that homelessness, I was talking to a power greater than me. And I would tell this power every night, I said, I need help. I told him, I said, I'm willing to lay down and die. I'm willing to go to jail. I'm willing to go wherever you might send me to get where I need to go, to get me out of this trap I'm in, and I don't know what to do. And so what happened with that, and one day it dawned on me that somebody had sent me a number to call, and I had thrown it away. I threw this number away. I said, I can't call this person because it was my ex-wife, and she's the reason I'm out here. I'm blaming others now,
Right.
and I said, I can't call her, so I threw it in the garbage. And I just kept on doing what I was doing, And I kept saying that prayer, though. And then what happened, these light bulbs, a moment of clarity would come to me, and I woke up, and I was on this run, and I was down on 23rd and K Street, and I leaned up against the garbage can, and I looked back behind me. I used to rent that townhouse, the top townhouse there in that apartment complex, and now I'm digging in the same garbage can that I used to put my garbage in.
Wow.
That was where I was at. That was at my bottom, So I said, ooh. And I looked up, and I was talking to this God, and I said, and then the light bulb go on. He said, well, he sent me a number. He sent me a number, and I thrown it away. That's a fool, And then another light bulb come on, and he said, the lady across the alley right there, her boyfriend has that number. You can get that number. So I made that call. I went and knocked on the door, and I got the number, and I called her, And that was the hardest thing I ever done, to call her to try to get me out of there. She told me okay, and she told me, and she said, come to me, and I'll see what I can do to help you, up here, and where I'm at today. And I said, okay, but I ain't got no way. I ain't got no money. I got money in my pocket because I just made a run. I had a little money, but I thought I ain't got enough money to catch a bus, so I can't get up there on the bus. I ain't got no transportation. I got a shopping cart.
Right.
And all this stuff. And she said, well, figure out a way. And then she said, well, call him and tell him to come get you. He's got a car. And he was the one that was leaving her house and bringing me that number. And so then I had an out. My disease told me, you can get out of this lifestyle. But do you really want to go? And then he said, okay. He said, but you got to give me some money to get the gas to get down. So I called her back. She said, tell him to come by my house, and I'll give him some money for gas to come pick you up. I said, okay. And as soon as I got off the phone, the disease said, we need to go now. And what they told me was, don't leave. Wait on me. I'm coming. But see, when things started looking good for me, I got to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to change. So I told them, it's okay, I'm leaving. I'll be right here when you get here. And then as soon as they hung up the phone, I sat there for a minute, maybe an hour. And then my disease says, let's go. There's a liquor store around the corner. We can stop over there. Let's just go to the liquor store. And so I did. I told the girl I was sitting there in her house, I said, I'll be right back. I've used "I'll be right back" so many times in my lifetime and never show up. I left one time, told my wife I should be right back, didn't make it home for 3 years.
Oh, man.
It took me 3 years to get back home in the disease, man. And so I left over there, and I went to the store, I got what I wanted, and I went around the corner, hit this garbage can, because that's what I'm used to, digging in the garbage. And I looked over in this garbage can, and it's full of cans, and cans to me was money. And that was the big thing going, If I could get a bunch of cans, I had a lot of money. And I dug it all out, and I got it all in this bag, and the disease says, let's keep going. My disease had me.
Yeah.
But I said, something inside of me, I guess it was a higher power or whatever it was, so just go back and give them another hour. So I went back over there and got what I wanted at the store, I'm sitting there going to give them an hour, and I fell asleep. When I woke up, they was there. My higher power told me, said, "You're not going this time. You ain't running."
Right.
And then all the way up to where I had to go, I'd beg him, "Stop over here, stop here, stop there." Because if he got stopped that car, I was getting out. I wasn't getting back in.
Yeah.
I'm turning around. I'm going back. But it was easy. You going back. That's how powerful this thing was. Had me. It had me in a grip that I couldn't get out of. And I didn't know how. I mean, I fought the war. I've done all this stuff. I know how to be a good man, but I couldn't get away from this one. They say in the program, surrendered to win.
Yeah.
I was surrendered to the disease and kept losing.
Right.
The disease had me at a loss, man. And so I just stayed in it. I couldn't, because then I could use the word surrender. I'm a Marine. They taught us never surrender, back up, regroup, and come back. And I kept coming back at the disease, and every time I come back at the disease, I'm losing.
Right.
I'm losing the battle, right? Wow, this is crazy, But it just had me to where I couldn't get out. And so I'm lucky there, and so when I got in the car, he said, "I'm going to stop at a liquor store just for you," because I told me I can't leave the town without my stuff, man. And he said, "Where'd you stuff?" I told him, "Behind the church," and I went over and had 2 garbage bags. That's all I own.
And so this is where the recovery journey starts.
Starts right in for me, right here, But and then I said, okay, so it started. I didn't get up here and come right into recovery.
Yeah.
I got up here, I got my stuff, and he stopped at a liquor store, right? And I get out and I get what I wanted at the liquor store, and I said, "How much further we got to go?" I went back to the car, and think, well, I'm already in this town. I ain't never been in this town. I don't know nothing about this town, so I need to. But I'm scoping it out when I get out of this car, right? I see a spot where there's a recycling center I'm used to.
Right.
I got my gear. I can live on the streets up here. I can make it work. My disease said, "You can make it work up here too, just a different town."
So now you're coming up with a plan.
Yeah, and my disease is talking, and I said, wow. And then I asked him, I said, "Where does she live?" He said, "Right across the road there. We here." And so I said, okay. And so what happened with that, I would stay at her house, sleep on her couch, my ex-wife. And
she's clean, right?
she had 3 years clean.
Right.
And she would talk to me, and in the daytime I'd go over to my buddy's house and get loaded. And nighttime I'd come back to her house, sleep it off. Daytime I'd go back over to my buddy's house and get loaded. But I was off the street, living on the streets. I was able to take a shower. I was able to do that kind of stuff and eat a little bit. And then what happened with that is one day she told me she wasn't going to meeting. She didn't say nothing to me about go to no recovery thing, And I said, okay. And then one day she walked up and said, "I need to go to a recovery meeting, and would you like to go?" I said, "No, thank you." See, because I had went through a treatment center a long time ago and got 90 days clean. And then I went right back out because I didn't work no kind of recovery program. I done it on self-will run right and all that stuff. So I told her, okay, I'll do it. And she sat me down with a cup of coffee. She said, "I give you a week of my time. How come you can't give me a little bit of your time and go with me?" I said, okay, I'll do it. If I don't like it, I'm leaving.
So what'd you look like going into those meetings?
I had long hair down to my shoulders, because we don't take care of ourselves,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, how Sam Elliott looked in some of the movies, with the beard and the hair and all that stuff. I come in looking like that,
And I mean, were you receptive to it, or you were just like, "I'm just here to make her happy so I can go sleep on her couch and get loaded some more"?
I'm just going to, please her. That's what I'm going for, because I don't want to live on the streets, And I got there, and there's something about it. When I got there, it hit me, They had a big circle and red floor I never remembered, and I remember it well, and I said, "Well, what's this circle for?" She said, "We sit in a circle." I said, "Not me." So I got me a chair and put it right by the door, my back against the wall. I'm not sitting up in here with these people, because when she walked around there, everybody was laughing and talking and glad to see her and stuff. and all this crazy mess. And I said, what the world's going on here? They stuck their hand out. I said, look, I'm her friend. I'm not a member of this program. I'm just visiting you people, okay? And all that crazy stuff, you know. And I said, okay. And I was sitting in that, listening to these people talk. And something about it hit me, you know, and my stomach tied up in a knot, and I broke out in a sweat. And I felt like I was going to throw up in that room, man. I got to get out of here. This is not for me. My disease, yeah, we need to go now.
Right.
So I went out the door, but I leaned over, whispered in her ear, and told her, I said, I'm going outside. I got to get some air. I said, I'll be outside. I won't go nowhere. I'll stay outside, you know. And I got outside. I said, then we can go. I said, no, I can't. I promised I'd be outside, so I stayed, you know. And I come back the next day, and I got interested in how this thing works, you know. How can I have an opportunity now to break the cycle of the disease? But I didn't know I was doing that at the time. What I realized later, I was slowly surrendered to something new.
Yeah.
Slowly. It took a while. But I kept coming, and I kept visiting the program, you know. And how I become a member, that I read a reading one time. And when I picked it up to read it, I said, oh, no, I can't read this. I've got to get honest with me. And so honesty to me is one of the biggest principles I live by today.
Yeah.
I stay honest pretty much in all my affairs today. You know, pretty much. I'm not saying I'm perfect at anything I do. You know, I stay as close as I can. You know, and what I done is I told him my name is Terry, and I'm an addict. And can you please help me? I just asked for help that day. And I've been getting that help from the 12-step program ever since.
Right.
It's been a great journey, you know. In early recovery, it was hard because I have this disease, you know, and they kept saying, do you really want to stay here? Do you really think you belong here? Or, you know, and all this stuff. And I got to listen to people, and then I talk to people, you know, and I hear people say, I got 10 years clean, I got all this stuff, you know, and I'm thinking, how in the world you get 10 years clean? I got 3 days, and I'm suffering like a dog. You know, I'm dying inside, you know. You know, how you going to get that? Then I'd hear somebody say, well, I got 30 days clean. Then I could kind of back down a little bit from the disease and say, 30 might be possible.
Right.
Because I remember one time I got 90 days clean when I went through a treatment center. But then after that, I went back out 20 more years, man. Our disease just took me for another tailspin. And I knew that, and so I could relate to that, you know. And then there was a guy in there, he shared one time, and he had 15 years clean. It was something about this man, the way he talked, the way he acted, the calmness in his voice, attracted me to this man. And I said, well, I'm going to get to know him. You know, so I done it. And he would go most of all the meetings I went to, and I'd go sit by him thinking this stuff will rub off on you by osmosis. You know,
Yeah.
I sit close to him, I'm going to get to stay clean, but I ain't going to do no work, you know. And then I listened to him. He said, are you listening to what they telling you? What are they telling me? He said, you ain't listening. He said, you got to get open-minded to what they saying here. Yeah. And then they talking about working steps and getting sponsors and I said, well, I read the steps, you know. He said, how about I get some IP pamphlets and read some literature, you know. So I started doing that, you know, and I done that, you know, and then the man didn't never become what you would call my sponsor, but he became one of my best friends, you know, mentored me till I could figure out what I'm going to do in the program of Narcotics Anonymous. And then finally I said, okay, maybe I need to take a look at something different and try something different. And so I started getting involved in the 12-step program, you know. I started saying, well, I can do a little of this, you know. I'm not going to do it all at one time. I'm jumping in with 1 foot, not 2, you know, but I'm going to stay within the bounds of the circle, you know, and stay close. And I did that, you know, and then I finally started working, got a man to work with, and I started working steps, and my life started changing for the better, man. Started changing for the better, you know, and I ended up not getting a job, but I ended up getting an income, started paying my way and doing all this stuff, you know. And the more I worked on myself, the better life got, you know. And I'm thinking, well, this is not bad. But I'm still living on somebody else's couch. I'm not independent. I'm not on my own. I'm not doing none of that. You know, and then I got a man called a sponsor, and he said, you need to be fully self-supported, and that means you need to start paying your own way. I put $1 into the program. He said, you pay your own way in all your affairs. That means you need to start paying your rent. I said, now I got to get busy doing something else, right? So I said, okay, so I started doing that. And what happened was I kept trying to figure out, what am I going to get a job? Because, like I said, I come in here, I was in my 50s, you know, and I done got old, you know, and I knew it was going to be hard for a 50-year-old man that ain't worked in 20-something years to get a job.
Right.
I got no resume, except for way back when, you know, and so this is going to be tough. So I started taking odd jobs. People would say, well, I need my grass cut, I need this, I need that, I need that. So I go get little whatever I could to make a little bit, you know. And then I decided, well, you know, and then one day all of a sudden, I decided, well, I need to get my health checked. Living 20 years on the street, because now I'm starting to think a little more sane.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no telling what's wrong with my body, you know. 20 years of living on the street and sleeping on the ground, and ain't no telling what I've done to me and what I put in me, you know. So I went down to get this insurance, to this insurance place called MIA, I think was the name of it, and they told me I didn't qualify. I said, what? And I told them, I said, well, I'm a veteran. They said, well, then go to the veterans. So I suited over to the veterans office and asked them, do I qualify for your insurance? They said, did you get an honorable discharge? Do you got your DD-14? I said, yeah, I got it. It will bring it back, and you qualify for insurance. And there was a lady there sitting behind it, said, you want a check? And an addict wants money.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's the first thing I thought about. Hey, we need to get paid today. I said, sure. You know, and she said, well, let's do some legwork and see what we can do. So I ended up 100% disabled through the veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and the work disorder. Because when they sent it back to me, at first they gave me a 50% work disorder. Then I went back to the psychiatrist, talked to him again, and she pissed me off, and I cussed her out and walked out, you know, because she blamed my mother for me. I said, it ain't my mama's fault I'm an idiot. You know, why you want to blame somebody that ain't even alive no more? You know, and I was all upset, and I had some members with me, you know, and they took me to the ocean and calmed me down, you know. I'm thinking, quit all this. This ain't working for me, you know. Low self-esteem will get you, and they just breathe. And then I went back and I went through, and they give me 70% of this post-traumatic stress disorder. And then I went in there and showed it to her. They told me, and the lady told me, so whatever the paper they send you, don't sign nothing. Bring it to me, and we'll work on it together. See, there was always somebody out there helping me get better.
Yeah.
And so I was okay. And then when I got it, she said, we got them now. She said, we can get 100%. Because right here it says you ain't worked nowhere for anybody since 1991. You don't like authority figures, and you don't play well with others. And so I signed up for it, and I ended up 100%. And so that's where I live today off of the income I got, you know. And that's a great thing. See, God had a plan for me. I didn't know what it was. I know the more I worked in this program, the more I received if I didn't get loaded.
Right.
And the lady that introduced me to the program was my ex-wife, right? And we got married at a place called Magic Island that I had 5 years clean at Magic Island in Hawaii. I took her to her dream, man. And you see, my first 3 years clean, I ended up with $20,000 cash money. And my disease said, we got this. And I got nervous because I had all this money, you know, and I know what the disease can do with it. And it scared me. You know, I didn't know what to do. And so I said, well, what am I going to do? $20,000. You know, I got all this money. I put it in the bank. I called my sponsor and told him, I got $20,000. What are we going to do? He said, we're going to start making amends right now and paying people we owe. You know, 'cause somewhere in there, I got to pay these people back, you know. He said, first off, you still sleeping on your wild scout, right? No, I said, well, I'm going to rent my own place. I'm going to take $20,000 and move out on my own. I'm going to start paying my own way. And I did that. He said, now you owe her for the time you stayed at her house. Now I got to give her money, right? So he said, you need to go over and talk to her and tell her, ask her what she'll settle for. That was before we got married, right? I said, okay. So I went over and we talked about it. She said, Terry, you really don't owe me nothing. I'm just glad you're off the streets, man. I said, but I got to pay you something. She said, well, how about $1,500? Give me $1,500 cash and we'll call it even. I said, okay. So I give her the money, you know, to pay my way. While I was there, I started being responsible, doing the right things. And then we got married, you know, and all this stuff, you know. And later, because I flew back to Alabama after I did get clean, you know, to see my family because I wanted to see them. I hadn't seen them in years, you know. Last time I was over there, my daddy died, and I was over there. I was in the disease then, and then I'm kind of all over the road here, but that's okay. And I went over there to see him before he passed away. And I told my family when I caught the bus to go there, I kicked on the bus, man. That's the hardest kick in the world. And I got clean kicking on that bus. Every place I stopped, I said, well, at least I'm going to stop next to a liquor store. I can get something to take the edge off. But I didn't stay long enough for me to get the edge took off. And it was a long 3-day drive, you know. And then I got there, and, you know, and then I walked in on my daddy, and the first thing he said to me, he said, boy, you need a haircut. You know, you look like crap. You know, and he's dying from cancer. And I said, I know that, you know. And I stayed clean while I was there till he passed away. You know, and I promised my sister I wouldn't use nothing, I wouldn't drink nothing, I would just stay clean while I was at her house. I would give her that wish. And I did it. But the minute he died, I started my disease. Now we can go back to California. And then during that process, I ended up with $5,000 from him for a life insurance policy. But I was in California, and I had the check mailed to a recycling center, and I'm back on the streets again. That money lasted a little bit in no time.
Yeah.
You know, and then, so now I'm back over on where I flew to Alabama clean, you know, and I'm sitting around the table with them, you know, and then my sister, I told her, I come over to tell you I'm sorry for all the things I've done to you and how I treated y'all and when I was out there doing that crazy mess. She said, that don't matter. She said, I'm so glad to have my big brother back that was a loving and caring man before we went off into that crazy world.
Yeah.
I'm just glad to have you back.
So you touched on something earlier, was being in a meeting and saying, hey, I'm Terry. I need some help. Right? Like for a guy that's been through all the things that you had been through in life, how hard was that to, you know, hold the pride and the ego and say, I can't do this. Isn't working for me. I need some help.
That's probably, well, it really wasn't hard when I said it, you know, because I knew I needed it.
Yeah.
But for me to admit that to myself and get self-honest with me was the hardest thing for me to do. Because I knew I needed the help, you know. But right after that, soon it was like when I said that, it was like a weight was lifted off of my shoulder because I was asking somebody to help me change my life.
I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of people coming in is just to admit
that you need help.
You need some help here.
And I was grateful that I'd done it, you know, but it took me a long time before I would pick up that reading and read that reading.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting there and I visited, like I said, I visited this program 28 days, and that reading kept popping up in my hand, you know. And then if I'm going to participate in this program, everybody else is reading the reading, sooner or later I'm going to have to read the reading. I would have rather had any other reading in that room but that one.
And it kept falling in your hands every time.
Yeah, and it said, who's an addict?
Right. And then the book we read all the time, because you touched on some stuff and it had me thinking, it says something to the effect that we don't have a moral deficiency. We have a disease, right?
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to realize that you really weren't a bad person? This disease was pushing you in the direction to make all these bad choices.
Well, I stayed in the program for like 50 days. I was clean about 50-some days before I got a sponsor, right? But I was going to meetings. I'd do whole thing. And I got this sponsor, and what really caught me was step one. When I realized how unmanageable my life was, how powerless I am over everything, you know, and I need to change a lot of stuff. The steps started changing me in spite of me. You know, I didn't want to change. Because, you know, when we in the disease, we self-centered, and the world's all about us. But when we get out of that, we start caring more about ourselves. We start caring about other people, you know, and I started caring about my ex-wife and my kids and all that stuff, right? And so it wasn't hard after I realized I really wanted to change.
Yeah.
The steps is what started the journey for me into the other side, you know. And so I just kept working them, you know. Because every time I worked a step, I'd find something new. You know, it's amazing how that works. But when I first said that word, you know, I'm an addict, and can you please help me? Tears come down my cheeks because it was like a relief.
Yeah.
I finally said something honest for the first time in many years that I need something to help me. That was an amazing feeling, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what happened back then.
Well, and I know you pretty good now, you know, and even though you are this person that has all these spiritual principles they apply to their life on a daily basis, you're still a bit of a rebel.
Yes, I am.
Right? And so that some of these things don't fade too easy.
No, they don't. They still there. I still have these things called the character defects that pop up and eat me alive sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
I did this morning. See, I live my life, I live a simple life. And I'll tell you a little bit about this morning. I try to get up an hour ahead of anybody in my house because I need my quiet time.
Yeah.
I need to get the fog lifted off. I need to get with a higher power. I need to get my coffee. I need to get settled. But when I got up this morning, my wife's coming out at the same time I'm coming, and she's a whole different ballgame from me, right? I'm quiet and laid back and don't like a lot of noise. She's a little bit loud, you know. She thinks everything in the house is a drum, and you know, and all this stuff. And it was irritating me, you know. I told her kind of early in the morning for that, right? She said, "Well, you know who I am, you know." And so I said something to her, you know, and then all of a sudden she, and then I finally got a little irritated with it, and I got a little louder than her. And then I had to correct all that, you know, because let her be who she is, you know. She's
right.
her, I'm me, you know. I could always go to another room. I could do something else, but that's my chair. Don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
This is my space. You need to go over here. See, that disease would tell me that kind of stuff. I've still got them defects that gets on me, you know. And I have to work on me daily.
Yeah.
To stay at that place where I like to be. But before she left, it was all good. She said, "Have a good day." I said, "You too." Yeah. And all that stuff. It don't last long.
Yeah.
But in early recovery, I'd hold on to it forever. I would hold on to it, cop resentments and all kind of crazy stuff. I'd have to leave the house to go find serenity, you know. And I got two places I go when I leave the house, you know, for serenity. I either go to a cemetery or I go to water. Cemetery is one of the prettiest places in the world, the quietest places in the world, you know, 'cause them people ain't going to talk back to me. You know, it just sit there and got flowers and it's pretty and it's mellow. And I talk to a power greater than me out there before I come home and get calmed down. Or I go to water and just listen to the water run for a little bit, you know, and that calms me down. I got to find a place for me. But this morning I should have got in the car and left, but I didn't. You know, I done what I done, and then I thought after I said, "I wish you'd just quit playing everything as a drum, just quieten down." And she finally didn't even talk to me. She just got real quiet. I said, "Oh, I know I've done stepped on a toe here." I knew I was in trouble, you know, but I said, "Well, sometimes silence is golden. Don't say nothing. Wait till she gets over it, and then she speaks, and then we can get into the conversation, straightening it out, right? Let her feel her feelings, because I already know I done messed up. I'm feeling mine. I'm sorry is not the answer.
No.
Sorry don't work for me, you know. I told her, I said, well, do you think maybe tomorrow you can be a little bit more quieter? Maybe I won't be so grouchy and evil and old, obnoxious with you. She said, I doubt it. I said, okay, that's all I need to know.
Well, that's like the beauty of the program, right? And it's so funny because the more I heard you talk, the more I can identify. Like we deal with a lot of the same exact stuff, right? And before, when I'm in my disease, I would see us. He talks different than me. He's older than me. I can't identify with any of this, right? And then we're sitting there talking about things, and we're going through the same exact things at the same exact times, right?
Yeah.
And so I know, we touched a little bit on your early recovery, but being around here for quite a while now, staying clean for about 20 years, you've had to walk through some pretty difficult things clean.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I walked through the wife that I remarried in the program. She died, and I had to go through the grieving process of her, and that was tough. Because, like I said, I had 20 years of history with her, you know. And, I mean, I was in the disease, married to her for 15 years. I divorced her for 10. I remarried her for 5 here in the program in Narcotics Anonymous. We worked on each other. And with her defects was pretty much the same. And she had a good, solid program. I had a good, solid program. So we didn't fight a lot. And toward the end, before she passed away, we even thought alike. I'd be coming home, and she'd say, I think I'm going to get home and take some chicken now for dinner. She said, I had the same thought on my head. You need to quit robbing my thoughts, So we got that, and now I got this new one, and it's a little different because her defects is a little different, and we clash a lot, but we don't go to bed mad. We don't do that. And then on top of that, I went through several surgeries in the program in Narcotics Anonymous, I had a hernia surgery and all this stuff, and then I had cancer, and that was the toughest one I dealt with, was the cancer, and I had to do radiation and chemo, and what happened with that was I bled out twice and almost died. I mean, I passed out in my house here twice, and the ambulance took me, and the last time that happened to me, I remember I was coming to in the ambulance, and I'd always go to a certain hospital, and this time they said, well, you need to go to the closest hospital. I don't think we're going to get him back. And about that time when I heard that, I spoke. They said, well, never mind, where are you going? He's back, and then I ended up with no muscle tone. I couldn't move, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do nothing. And I'm sitting in the hospital, and they put me under rehab. And I got in this rehab, and I'm laying there thinking, this is all for me. I'm talking to this God, right? This is all for me. Just take me home. I don't want to live like this, And he been taking me home, Everybody coming by the visit, I'm getting ill-tempered with because I'm feeling sorry for me. It's all about me. And I had my books with me, and I had them right. I'd read my books every day. I'd do all that stuff. I try to stay connected because you can't get out and I can't move, and so one day this lady come in and said, oh, you in recovery? And she was one of the therapists, right? Mm-hmm. Working with me. And I said, yeah. She asked me, how much clean time you got? I told her, and she said, me too. And I said, okay, I work recovery too. She said, why don't you get off the pity party and come on down here and let's get some work done. And so I started working on myself, and I got to thinking that night, I said, well, God put me here for a reason. I'm the one that's got to do the work. So I started working real hard to get my body back in check. And then I do the upper body in the afternoon, the lower body in the morning, ride the bicycles and do whatever I had to do to learn to walk. And this other therapist, she comes in early in the morning and makes her rounds, and we don't usually get up and go do nothing till after breakfast. And she walked in there and sang me awake one time at 5:30 in the morning. She said, oh, you're an early bird, so I can get you up sick and we get started early. And so I started getting up early in the morning doing all this stuff, to get me back to where I'm at today with that. And then I lost a daughter. That one was tough, but not as tough on me as losing her. It was having to tell my grandson, that I raised in the program of Narcotics Anonymous that his mama died. You know, 'cause I raised him for a long time. You know, I got him through high school, and he graduated and went to gone to school, done all that stuff. And I had to tell him his mama just passed away. You know, that was hard. And then I had to go tell the rest of the kids, you know, and all that stuff, you know, and it was tough to tell them you ain't got a mama no more. And then I had to go through the feelings with him, you know, and my feelings too at the same time, you know. But thank God for my wife in the program. When they told me that day, she come up and just hugged me up close and said, "All you need is a hug. And remember, just have the faith of a mustard seed, and this thing will be okay."
Yeah.
And so people was feeding me these spiritual principles, right? And I'm thinking, well, I need this, you know. And I done all that, you know, and got through that pretty good. And then when one of the kids come down from Wyoming, I went to the funeral home with the kids so they could bury their mama. They grown, they can do what they're going to do. I'm just there for support. And then I told my grandson that I raised, I said, now you remember, when you get there, you have a say. Your voice is valuable. And if you don't like what's going down, speak up. And I got your back. You know, because he's in high school. He ain't got no money. He ain't got no income. And I knew this one of these childs had plenty of money. And she's going to run the show, right? I knew it was coming at me. I said, but you remember, you got to say about your mom. And so they got into that, you know, and into the discussion. And I got I have 2 burial plots on me already paid for me. You know, so I volunteered to give up 1 burial plot for her. You know, where my wife that passed away is, because I done got another spot for me and the wife I got today, and it's paid for. And then she said, no, we're going to cremate her, and I'm taking her home with me. I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to fight with you. I said, and then I asked them people, I said, let me ask y'all a question. Does she have all the say-so here because she's got the money? She said, no, every one of them has a say in it. It's like doing a group conscience.
Yeah.
And whatever happens in the majority is what's going to happen with the body. But then she manipulated the system because she had a $50,000 policy on her. Mama, she said, well, I'll give every one of y'all $3,000, so she got her way. And I'm wanting to kill her, right?
Well, you know that behavior.
Yeah, I've done that. But I can't win. And then she come back to my house, and that night she started throwing a fit and throwing, And then she asked me, she said, I want some pictures of my mama and all this stuff. And I'm not leaving here. I'm taking pictures of my mama. And I had some pictures of her. She was in recovery for 3 years. She went back out, and she never made it back. And she died out there. And I said, well, you'll wait till in the morning when I feel like it. And then I come to find out she jumped in a fight in there with her brother, and so they sleeping in the other room together. And she was all, I went and got her, put her on the couch. I told her, you need to calm down. You know, and I'm not wanting to throw her out in the middle of the night. Trying hard to be spiritual with this here. You know, my wife even got up and said, hey, what's going on? I said, I guess me and her are going to sleep in the living room. I take the recliner seat out of the couch. She got to calm down. You know, but I had to remember that her mother just passed away. You know, and I kept telling her, it's all about you, huh? What about the other one? Don't you think they hurting too? Trying to see her, make her see the other side of the picture, right? And I finally, I had about crack of daylight, I had enough of her. I said, you pack your bag and you get out of my house. Don't you ever come back to my house. You're going to act like that. You're not going to disrespect my family like that. And she told her brother, because he's living in Wyoming, said, well, you better get your clothes. My truck's leaving now. He said, I ain't going home with you and you acting like that. And he stayed. You know, and it's hard to throw them out. That's the hardest thing I ever done was throw one of the kids out. But I told her, I said, if you don't act like that, just don't come back around me at all. And I said, don't make money, you hire power. And then I looked at him, I said, you think you ever going to get that $3,000? Out of all them people that she told she was gonna give $3,000 to, right? Her other sister, her brother, and her brother that lived with me. He was the only one that got $3,000. She did mail him a check for $3,000. He was the only one. She kept the rest. I told him, I said, I told y'all could have put her in the wall, and you could go see your mother. Now she's in Wyoming, in an urn.
And you got to stay clean through all this.
I stayed clean through it all.
Yeah.
It was just, I got to remember, I'm working the program. I got to think about her feelings too, you know. But she don't talk to me no more, which is okay. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with everybody in that family because it was the first wife. I didn't get along with that family anyway, you know, because I think all of them are narcissists and it's all about them, you know. Everything's about them, you know, and all that stuff. But and then I talked to my daughter-in-law that she was married to my son that got killed over a dope deal went bad. They shot him in the back of the head and blowed his brains out. Mm. And I had to bury him, and I was in my disease then though. But then when I got clean, he was coming out of prison. They was going up for parole in prison, and my first wife that I took her up there, so she wanted to go to the parole board here and have her say so on whether they get out or not. And that was hard to take her and let her go through that. You know, they didn't get out, but that was sad. But all that stuff, it's been an amazing journey through, you know, and I get to stay clean through it all.
Yeah.
And then right now, my brother-in-law just passed away, you know, and he married to my sister for 43 years. They got married. She got married to him right out of high school. And she's the one that told me, said, I'm so glad to have my big brother back.
And you get to be there for her through this process.
I was the first person she called when she made the decision. After she called her kids and to go ahead and take the oxygen off and let him pass away. Said, I got to make this decision today, and I'm going to have to let him go. And I'm so glad you answered the phone for me.
Yeah.
I get to be a part of.
Those are the blessings.
And that's all the blessings of recovery. And some of them's good, some of them sad, you know, but I get to live through it.
Yeah.
And I get to stay clean. I don't think about getting loaded. I think about how grateful I am to be there to help them. That's what it's about, one person helping another. And all our parts, whether it's in the program, out of the program, whatever it is, you know, I'm blessed. I'm so blessed. You know, now I'm raising another little boy. He's 15. He's 15, too. And he's got a mind of his own, right? And this morning he woke up and he told me, he says, it's going to rain today. I said, no, it's not supposed to rain today. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, but I think it's going to be clear days of riding bicycle. Because he's just like me. He don't like to go over and get in that traffic in the school, you know, trying to get through all that mess to get out there and get home. Because we ain't but an hour, but a mile from school. If he rides the bicycle, he get home quicker, right? And I told him, I said, that suits me just fine because I don't like it either, but you know, and all this stuff. I get to be a part of him. And I hope I can raise him as good as I did the grandson that I have. See, because I give 2 kids away to the disease of addiction, 2 boys. I hunted them when I was in the 9th step to find them. I finally found one. The one I don't know where he's at. That's the one I left at the bus station, jumping up and down, hollering, Daddy, don't go, don't go, don't go. And I got on the bus and drove away in the disease. And then this other one, I found him on Facebook, and he shot me a message, told me, said, I went to Brookwood High School too. I said, well, so did I. And then I shot him a message when I come out of a meeting, you know, because somebody asked me, said, did you just find your son? I don't know. I shot a message to somebody, but I left coming to a meeting, and I don't know what the reply was. And he said, you don't know me, but you know my mama. I see where this conversation's going. So I talked to him about his mama, you know. I didn't try to push myself in on him. And I come to find out he just retired from the Marine Corps with 27 years clean, with 2 Purple Hearts. Yeah. And he told me, so I keep trying to tell my mama she needs to talk to you, but she said she don't want nothing to do with it. You leave that alone. She has the right to feel the way she feels, and I'm going to respect her wishes. I don't need to know. If she don't want to deal with me, I understand, because I've done a lot of dirt to her too. He said, but I want to let you know I love you.
That's
and
awesome.
I forgive you for abandoning me. I said, thank you. And we still talk today. I get some things back, huh? And I get some other blessings that's new to me, huh? Today my health's pretty good. I'm doing all right, and fine. The kids went off to school, the wife went off to work, and I'm here with you, carrying the message the best I can for today.
So I think we probably hit about an hour, which is usually our mark. But one more thing, because it's kind of a unique thing that we haven't experienced yet. What would you tell somebody that might be living under that bridge or that may be homeless, right? Because a lot of people don't see a way out of that. What would you tell somebody like that to give them a little bit of hope?
Well, I tell you what I have done. I talked to several people, and a couple of them are friends of mine that's still out there homeless. I tell them there's another way of life, but you're going to have to want it, And I tell them my story about how I got out and what I done, And I also, with the veterans out there, I tell a veteran to go to the veterans office because you have a chance. They will put you into a treatment center somewhere to help you get better, because they will. I didn't do I done my first go through with the treatment center was a VA treatment center, but I didn't stay clean. So I got into a program that works for me. But then they got them into something to get them better. I said, you don't have to live this life unless you choose to.
Yeah.
But I said, I'm going to tell you now, the choice is yours. But if you won't, I'll stick my hand out and help you find a spot. Wherever it may be, I'll help you get there to see if you want to try it out. And if you want to, I'll take you and show you the way. But that's all I can do is carry the message. I can't carry that addict.
No.
No way can I.
Perfect.
That's what I do today. I still do it today.
Yes, you do. Well, Terry, thank you very much for doing this. Yeah. We always ended the same way. We ended with a hug. So I'm looking. I think there's space. I'm going to come around and give you a hug.
Okay.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Uh-huh.